Today, we're diving into a war you've probably never heard of, but it's one of the most brutal in all of history. We're talking about the Paraguayan War, a conflict that almost literally wiped a country off the map. So how on earth did this happen? Let's get into it.
To really get a handle on this, you gotta understand this wasn't just any war. This was a conflict so unbelievably brutal that it didn't just move borders around, it almost completely erased a nation. It was total war, and it absolutely shattered a continent.
And the numbers, oh man, the numbers are just staggering. We're talking about an estimated 500,000 people dead. To put that in perspective, think about the American Civil War. But now imagine all those losses concentrated in a place with way fewer people. The human cost was just unbelievable.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth does a dispute between neighbors escalate to the point where an entire nation is almost destroyed? It's this wild story of ambition, intense rivalries, and just one bad decision after another that's spiraled into this massive tragedy.
All right, so to figure out how this whole firestorm got started, we've got to rewind a bit. Let's look at what South America was like in the mid-1800s. And honestly, the whole place was a giant tinderbox, just waiting for a match.
Okay, so take a look at this map from 1864. The first thing you need to know is that these borders, they weren't set in stone. Not at all. A lot of this was based on old, messy colonial treaties, which meant they were huge chunks of land that everyone was fighting over. It was a constant struggle for control.
You had all the ingredients for a total disaster cooking at the same time. First, you've got the two big guys, Brazil and Argentina, constantly trying to one-up each other for regional dominance. Then there's Paraguay, landlocked, yeah, but super ambitious and building up a huge army. And the cherry on top? Everybody was sticking their nose in Uruguay's business. It was just a complete recipe for chaos.
And right in the middle of all this, you have these two guys. On one side, you have Emperor Pedro II of Brazil. He's the ruler of this massive empire. And on the other, you've got Francisco Solano López, the super ambitious leader of tiny little Paraguay. Their personalities, their ambitions, they were on a collision course. And that clash was going to set the whole continent ablaze.
So we've got the tinderbox, right? Well, now we get to the spark. And that spark came from the small country of Uruguay, which basically got caught in the crossfire of this huge power struggle.
And man, things just escalated so fast. Look at this. In April '64, Brazil jumps into Uruguay's civil war. Paraguay, who's allied with the other side, sees this and is like, no way. So in August, they send Brazil an ultimatum. What does Brazil do? They ignore it and invade Uruguay in October. So a month later, Paraguay hits back and grabs a Brazilian military ship. Boom, boom, boom. The dominoes were just toppling over.
And this is basically what Paraguay told them. They said, look, if you set one foot in Uruguay, we're going to see it as a direct attack on the stability of this entire region. They were drawing a serious line in the sand. The message couldn't have been clearer. But Brazil, well, they just completely underestimated how serious Paraguay was.
If you just look at the numbers, Paraguay's move seems, well, completely insane. You've got a country with maybe 450,000 people going up against a coalition of 11 million. Sure, Paraguay had a big army, but its weapons were old and pretty terrible. And the real game changer? Brazil had a powerful modern navy, which, as we'll see, was going to be absolutely crucial.
So facing these just insane odds, Paraguay knew their only shot was to go for a quick knockout. President López basically decided to bet the entire country on one massive, daring attack. He hoped he could win before the other guys even knew what hit him. And this is where López makes a huge mistake. To get to Brazil, his army needed to march through Argentina. Argentina said no. So what did López do? He invaded them anyway. Just like that, he turned a neutral country into a furious enemy. And bam, you've got the Triple Alliance against him. A massive miscalculation.
The Allies, though, were feeling pretty good about themselves. Listen to this quote from Argentina's president. In 3 months in Asunción, they thought it was going to be a walk in the park. They had no idea what was coming.
Remember that powerful Brazilian navy we talked about? Well, this is where it comes in. At the Battle of Riachuelo, the Brazilians just annihilated the Paraguayan navy. This was a complete game changer. It effectively put a stranglehold on Paraguay, cutting it off from any supplies or help. It sealed their fate in a long, grinding war they just couldn't win.
And on land, things got ugly. Truly horrific. The Battle of Tuyutí, it was one of the single bloodiest days in the history of the Americas. We're talking thousands and thousands of casualties in just a few hours. The result was this awful, grinding stalemate. The war turned into something that looked a lot like the trench warfare of World War I, something South America had never seen before.
So this brutal stalemate, this war of attrition, it didn't just destroy Paraguay's army. It was tearing the entire country apart, from the inside out.
The last few years of this war were just a complete nightmare. Paraguay ran out of men, so they started forcing children to fight. Back home, people were dying from starvation and disease. And as it all fell apart, President López became paranoid, executing anyone he suspected of defeatism, including his own brothers. The nation was literally eating itself alive. And you can see the results right here on this map. It's stark. On the left, that's Paraguay before the war. And on the right, that's what was left. Brazil and Argentina just carved off huge pieces of its territory. The loss of land was just staggering.
So yeah, for Argentina and Brazil, this was a win. They got the territory they wanted. But for Paraguay, it was a catastrophe on a scale that's hard to even comprehend. The country lost almost everything.
But, maps and charts don't tell the whole story. The real cost was human. The nation was left in absolute ruins. Just think about this. Some historians believe that up to 90%, 90, of Paraguay's adult male population was killed. It's a demographic collapse that you just don't see in modern history. It's mind-boggling.
So that's where we're left, with this really haunting question. Was this all because of one leader's insane ambition? Or was poor Paraguay just a pawn, caught in a much bigger game between its powerful neighbors? There's no easy answer. And just like the war itself, it remains one of the most tragic and debated chapters in history.